time to get this scale mounted finally. So what I've got here are my other set of more tool blocks. So these are screwed to each other. And then I just put a stop, one of the small ones, on the end here. And this is not all that necessary, but it took like 30 seconds to set up. So what we're gonna do is go off the bottom of the scale here, or off the scale, and that bump will essentially be even with the bottom of the bar on both sides. And we just have to have clearance, you know, it's just a fingernail's width on either end so that the guard fits over nicely. But I think that should work out okay. So maybe just put some light clamping pressure here when we do our punch marks, just to make sure everything stays in place. And step one to that is a little bit of die cam. What I'm going to use here is some special 3M tape that they use in like when you buy a new refrigerator to keep the glass from getting banged around in shipping. They put this kind of tape on all the drawers and everything inside so that things don't wiggle around and get damaged. And it is extremely strong, cuts easily, it doesn't leave a residue. So it's expensive, but most good things are. 8899 HP is the part number. So anyway, that stuff is handy to have around just for stuff like this. Not strictly necessary, but seems to describe most of what I do. And then all we're gonna do is transfer punch down in the hole with the close fitting transfer punch. Keep everything seated nicely. Couple of improvements to the milling machine. When I've got blocks or toe clamps in the T-slots get pretty full of junk. So I bought some cheapy import T-slot covers. Basically just kind of snap down in there. It's just extruded aluminum. I don't know if it's even anodized, but they're colored somehow. And those are gonna be kind of nice, but not as nice as what is there. So I bought some brand new Kurt vice jaws. So these are hardened and ground and look beautiful. Got the bar mounted on the cross slide. Got it pretty well lined up. Definitely inside a thousandth. Got this pretty well dialed in as well. Not as much travel as I want, but once we have the reed head mounted, then obviously it'll stay in one place and we can fine tune the leveling. But if it's 0 over a couple of inches, it's probably going to be close to 0 the whole length. So everything's tied together. Just need to move this guy over in the position we want. But we do have our dowel pins, or our taper pins that are going to keep our position. So when we take this thing off and put it back on, we'll be able to get right back where we were without having to just rely on the threads of those screws. So here goes. Because I'm my own worst enemy, I can't help myself, and we're gonna do something that some of you are probably gonna be really annoyed by, but that's okay, you're not here, it's not your lathe. So routing this cable, doing it from where the scale is just over the back of the saddle, I don't know, just looks cheesy. And I've got an enormous amount of space inside here and a gap underneath here to allow the cable to pass through. The only thing we're lacking is a little bit more clearance between the cable itself and the nut that moves back and forth on this rod. So we're gonna make a little bit more clearance. Gonna carve out just a little baby slot right there, and then the cable will be able to be mounted on this side of the, I don't know what you call that, this gap, this channel here, but anyway, in the original configuration, there was another lead screw coming from the back this way, and it was on the rear compound, but obviously that's gone and never coming back. So this is all free space, and then I can just take off the end cap on the back end of the carriage and just route the cable through. There's a little bit of a gap right in the corner. So shouldn't cause me any problems, and we're just taking off a tiny bit of material where there's already, I measured, it's about 4.5 inches wide and about 3 inches thick of cast iron. So carving out that little slot is gonna do absolutely nothing to the strength of this thing. All right, I think that's mission accomplished. It's down, it sticks up just a tiny bit, but I didn't need it to be completely below the level of the casting right there. So, looks okay, doesn't need to be anything special. After this video, it's probably not gonna be seen again for a very long time, if ever. Used a paint marker to give me some reference to look at. All right, we've got looks like a bushing, and then the bearing race, and then the ball bearings, and the other race. So that's pretty old and gross. So we'll take that off, or get that all cleaned up. And there was a Woodruff key in here, but I'm guessing that was because there was once a gear on here, and there isn't anymore. Oh, wasn't too bad. Casting is pretty heavy. And of course, my light is attached to it, so light will go for a ride. But there we go, that's all that's under there. Oh, here we go, there's another bearing under on the other side, which makes sense. That one's pretty nasty, so get that cleaned up too. Make this thing run a little smoother. And we can do a little bit of cleaning. A bunch of chips and filth back here. The other thing we might be able to do is take these covers off. Yeah, there we go. That one. Yeah. Give us a lot more access, so that's kind of good. And that's what it all looks like. You can see the oil lines from the Bijur pump on either side. There's our little channel we cut, and the gap that goes down underneath the saddle. Of course, there's the backside of the cross-sliding compound. So I think from here, I got a lot of cleaning to do. Try to stay out of the light and from blocking everything, but I want to have the cable secured kind of like that. We will do our best on drilling this hole. Not too long ago, I bought one of these Big Gator Tools tap guides. I actually wanted to get a drill guide as well, but they didn't have any in Imperial when I ordered, so I have to go back and look at that. But I just want to make sure we get this as straight as we can. Well, it's a whole lot better than just using a self-tapping screw with a zip tie this is what they give you, which, you know, is fine. It'll probably work for a very long time, but that certainly seems like a better solution to me. Okay, a couple more times inside the cavity up here where the cable runs. We don't want it getting tangled, of course, with either of the screws up there. So I'll get that done, and then it'll be time to reassemble the back of the saddle. Just enough room for my cable to not pinch or anything. Excellent. We've got our two spacers here. I don't think it really matters which one goes on which side. They're just here because there used to be a gear here, and now those guys just take up that space. Okay, that one goes on first. There we go. Down to our last steps here. So I've got a 2,000th gem, or 0.051 millimeters. And I'm just adjusting the little leveling screws that are part of the reed head mount. Now we can put in our mounting screws. Finally, we get to pull these little plastic brackets out. Well, we got one axis going. So when I turn on this, I'm going to turn about 50 on the dial. Oh, it didn't grab the backlash, did it? All right, let's try that again. 10-ish, 20, 30, 40, 50. All right, look at that. So right now I have it set to read in just thousandths instead of tenths. It'll read down to 2/10 per increment. I'm just trying to figure out how all the controls work before I get it set up for maximum accuracy. But yeah, that looks like a result. So we're done with the hard one, in my opinion, because I had so much fiddling around to do in order to get this set up the way I wanted it. But we're on the downhill now. The scale works, it doesn't seem to be broken. Hopefully it stays that way, of course. And yeah, be able to put the cover on. I'll paint the cover at some point. It may not happen for a while, who knows. But it'll do its job without being painted. It just won't look as pretty. Keep our scale nice and protected from any danger. And of course the little bump stop, going to prevent the tailstock from smashing into anything and causing trouble. I'm pretty happy with the way the cable routing turned out. So this is pretty sturdy. It doesn't dip down, so it's not going to drag and catch on anything. It goes out all the way to the back end of the machine where there's really nothing in the way. So that turned out pretty nice. Very clean installation. And most importantly, it seems to work. So, oh boy, it's been a long day. We will get on to the next step, which will be to mount the long scale. And that'll probably be an adventure on its own, but at least it's all horizontal work. I don't have to mess with quite as much stuff in my way. The hard part with that one, I guess, is probably going to be getting the reed head mounted on the back and bottom of the carriage, just because this saddle is kind of weird. So hopefully that doesn't cause us any trouble. But anyway, thanks for joining us as we get a little bit further down the road on this project, making a fantastic improvement to my lathe. See ya.